Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Steve Oken. I'm the president of CoreALM, and I'm happy to be here today to introduce another exciting topic for our ongoing series of webinars related to how you can improve your transport and change management processes and really unify for your organization. We're going to jump right into things. I'm going to introduce my guest today, Errol Sika, who is an ALM architect and very experienced in these types of agile type projects. So if you're setting out to run an agile project and you're trying to figure out how to accelerate and really improve your agility as well as your transport management processes, today will hopefully answer some of those questions for you. So excited to get into that. We do have a couple recent blogs that we posted, newsletters on LinkedIn. It's called the SAP ALM Navigator. That's a weekly publication where we issue information. Stay tuned. In a minute, I'll put it up on my screen how you can get to those articles where you can get additional information about how you can improve your agile project management using Jira as well as Azure DevOps, and tying that together with your SAP process. So just a quick bit of background on who we are. CoreALM was founded about 15 years ago when our CEO and founder left his position at SAP. Many of our team worked together at SAP before they came and joined CoreALM, including our founder, who really saw a gap in the market at the time where there was really no provider that was out there that was offering services and software specifically around application lifecycle management tools, for SAP customers specifically. And so really wanted to fill that niche, and so founded CoreALM, and we've been in business ever since. So we've served some of SAP's biggest customers, and really the thing that we learned in about 2018 is when we noticed that although of course people that run SAP is a very central piece of their architecture, core elements of their landscape, but there's many other tools that they or applications that they run in their landscape. Could be warehouse management, could be manufacturing, CRM systems and those types of things. And there's obviously a lot of integration between those applications and SAP, but for those other applications, non-SAP applications, they tend to use different tools. So, of course, SAP has their own ALM tools with Solution Manager, which is now kind of going out of mainstream support in 2027, and fully being unsupported starting 2030. And so with that, there had to be replacement. So Cloud ALM is coming as kind of that replacement, but it really doesn't meet all of the same level of requirements as what you get in Solution Manager. Plus, as I mentioned, many companies that run those applications use other tools for their other applications like Jira, Azure DevOps, and ServiceNow. And so, that's really kind of when we saw that with many of our customers, we started seeing the opportunity to build software to integrate. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's kind of the premise on which CoreALM was founded. And as I said, we serve many customers. Many of these customers have been running our software for many years. We cover pretty much across all industries, tend to be in larger organizations, doesn't have to be. We serve smaller companies too, but we've covered the gamut. So we've done high security environments like Ministry of Defense or those types of deals, as well as high security from the perspective of financial institutions that have high stringent security requirements. We also have high process compliance requirements like the FDA controlled industries such as pharma or life cycle management processes. Sorry, I meant life sciences. And so really covered the gamut of industries there, as well as, of course, manufacturing and all of retail, lots of other industries. But what is the whole point of what we try to accomplish? Really, what we see is that the change process overall is all about innovation. And the intent should always be that you have some process improvement that you want to implement within your company. And that process improvement, the first stage of the cycle, is to define in detail what is that improvement that you want to achieve. Without that, there's really kind of no point in going forward. Some changes are just purely technical, but even that, there's obviously an avoidance of risk for the business side. So first, define what is that process improvement that you want to make. Then, of course, you have to manage all of the work associated with gathering the requirements, implementing and maintaining the solution. And then ultimately, you're going to deploy and operate that. And hopefully, you're going to achieve the benefits that you sought out to achieve when you set out to do this by, in your process improvement. And by monitoring and analyzing the output of the process improvements that you made, you should hopefully have lessons learned that you can go back through the cycle again and then just continue, so that you're constantly getting, an improved process with that's more and more robust. So that's what we see. Of course, that could apply to a big business transformation project, but it could also apply to just even a system upgrade. We're seeing a lot of people are moving to, SAP 2025, and they're seeing this as a big undertaking. And we have real lessons learned on how you can justify the cost of automation as part of that upgrade because of how much effort you're going to save on doing those upgrades. That could be testing, that could be change impact analysis, and there's lots of lessons learned there. But again, continuous cycle, that could even be small maintenance updates that you're trying to make. And all of these things, should follow the same process. Of course, not as many steps, but we can help with that as well. But the challenge is that to do all of these processes well, you have to have a lot of different capabilities. And for those capabilities, you generally need tools. Now, there's fortunately almost too many choices of which tool to use for all of these different capabilities to help you manage that application lifecycle. Of course, SAP has Cloud ALM, which is, as I mentioned, they're kind of a new way of managing applications from end to end. They also have Signavio for more the kind of process management and design side, testing in Tricentis, as well as, of course, there's other tools like Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow. And unfortunately, there's a lot of overlap between these tools. And so the SAP tools kind of, do a lot of the same things as like the other enterprise tools like Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, but they don't talk to each other well. And so this creates a lot of conflict, people doing different things. Often what we see is SAP goes one way and does it one way, and then the rest of the organization does something different. Now, the problem with that is that in today's day and age, as you get into more like an AI-enabled workflow, or even just a modern kind of robust DevOps-driven automated workflow, you can't have those kind of handoffs going manual, or it's just going to slow the process right down. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is how can we accelerate that process, make it more automated? And the key is unification. So what we really want to do is make sure that that all of those tools are kind of brought together. And that's what CoreALM brings, is that unification layer, where whichever way you want to run the process, we can bring the data across all of the systems. We can take SAP specific capabilities and workflows, and we can enable them into the tools you're already using, whether it's Jira or Azure DevOps or ServiceNow. We're going to focus on Jira a little bit today, but we can sort of give you that process that's unified across, so that everybody, whether it's SAP or non-SAP applications that you're managing, are following the exact same process. And that improves communication, that allows changes to happen faster, that allows you to automate things and make it go a lot faster and get better results in a shorter time with less risk. So that's what we're going for here. Of course, we have different lines of products to support all of that. We have Solution Manager products for those people that are still there. We have Cloud ALM products, which we're going to talk about today, as well as direct transport management products, which allow you to do transport management controls without without Cloud ALM, directly in the tools that you're using, Jira, Azure DevOps, and ServiceNow. So we're going to show you that flavor today as well. Let's just talk quickly about a workflow, because we keep talking about application lifecycle. So what does this mean? So a simple Jira task may have the status of to do, in progress, or done. But that doesn't give you a lot of granularity as to really what's happening behind the scenes as it relates to testing, as it relates to transport management and actually promoting those changes into your production landscape. And so we have the ability to actually monitor additional status information from those other tools to give you that holistic viewpoint. What that enables is automations. So if you know better where you are in the process of execution or testing, then you can automate certain things. For instance, when your code is ready to be tested by your QA team, you can automatically run code vulnerability checks or analysis to make sure that the code that was written by the developers adheres to your security and compliance standards. You can have external code managed in external repositories. You can make sure there's no conflicts and that the sequencing of your code is all done properly so that you're not going to have a problem when you push that code either into your QA environment or pre-prod or into production. We can also do things like change impact analysis to actually see, are you getting those test cases defined in such a way that you're covering your risk? Because a lot of times what happens is we test certain things, we still see problems when we get to production. And so with this, for instance, Tricentis has Live Compare, which gives you change impact analysis, and that will help you to identify, with this change, these are the most likely impacted areas, so you can make sure you have test cases that will actually exercise those capabilities and that you're not going to have a problem later on in the cycle. It also helps you to not worry about testing things that are not impacted by those changes. So you're not wasting time running testing just for the sake of it if you can be confident that there's no impact to those areas. Of course, there's many other things we can do, but one of the big ones is now as people are moving into the cloud more, leveraging BTP from SAP or even non-SAP kind of cloud-based applications, you have the ability to synchronize those transports. So you can manage code and BTP in the same way that you manage ABAP code in your on-prem environments directly from these tools, and allow you to have a sort of a synchronized deployment, so that when you're moving a change, you're moving the whole change, not just the SAP side of the change and then a middleware change later, and then an application in the cloud later. You can have that all synchronized as part of your change management process. That works with BTP, that works with non-SAP changes as well. And then, of course, if you have multiple landscapes, I won't go into too much detail here, but you can have parallel landscapes. We also help you to synchronize so that you make sure that your project landscapes are keeping up to date with your maintenance landscape. So as you're making changes, for day-to-day course of business, like maintenance changes, you can make sure that those changes flow into your project streams as well, and you don't have to manually move those changes. So that's kind of the process overall. As I mentioned, we do have a lot more content on these subjects and many other topics you may be interested in. On the top left corner of your screen, you can see the link to the SAP ALM Navigator. That's our weekly newsletter that you can find on LinkedIn. If you hit subscribe on LinkedIn, then that will basically bring you to the articles, but it'll also make sure that you get notified of future editions. So you can continue to read those. We also have additional topics on our website, webinars that are coming up. Those are posted in the LinkedIn events as well. So you can look forward to those and sign up to those. And then if you need to speak to us, we'll give a demonstration today. We like to do tailored demonstrations wherever we can. So if you go to our website, you can click on the Talk to an Expert button in the top right-hand corner of your screen, or you can scan the barcode on the bottom right corner of your screen, fill out the form, and then we'll get back in touch with you. And if you just have a question, we're happy to help, or we can schedule a kind of personalized demonstration where we can show the features that are most interesting to you and your organization. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I will invite Errol Sika to join us for today. Welcome, Errol.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me. Can you guys, can you hear me okay and see me?
I can. Yeah.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. as you said, definitely lots to cover. Steve, you can see my screen, correct?
Yeah, all good.
All right. So yeah, lots to cover. We'll get going right away. From an agenda perspective, what we want to we want to talk about the integration between Cloud ALM and Jira, but also not just from a project management perspective, but also from transport management. So there are features or transports that Cloud ALM allows you to use. But there's also, if you are using Jira, there's also the integration through TMS that you can actually manage those changes or transports in Jira directly. So plenty of options there. And then I'll, as we continue with the webinar, I'll show you on the slides, but also I'll show you what that looks like in the system as well. So just from an introduction, from a Cloud ALM perspective, it is mentioned, right? It is a cloud-based application. It's a new tool from SAP that supports both your on-cloud and on-premise customers. It requires minimal effort actually to get the system up and running, and is offered at no cost to SAP customers. So if you already have a subscription to SAP, it's free for you. As mentioned, right, this is a new tool that's replacing Solution Manager, as we will no longer be supported. They're for both your implementation and your operation projects. Where you can use a tool to design, build, test, and deploy all of the to the deployment phases. And then from an operation perspective, it allows you you can use a Cloud ALM to monitor standard and also custom KPIs to where you're detecting problems, you're analyzing those problems, correcting those problems, and you're automating those performances. Now, from an implementation perspective, it supports the SAP Activate methodology by helping you jumpstart your projects from your requirements all the way to the deploy phase. You are able to leverage these accelerators as soon as you start your onboarding from the project. And then, of course, as you are designing your to-be solution during build, as you are building the solution, testing the work that's already been built, and then as you are moving those or deploying those changes into production and the next quality gate. It does allow for third-party integrations, which, as we already have mentioned, and that's also a major topic for today's webinar. So through open APIs. So if you're using, for example, Jira for your project management, or if you're using Charcentis for testing, test automation for testing, you can leverage all of those integrations between both tools. And as I mentioned, it is a one-stop shop for your project-related activities. So as it ties in together your design, build, test, and deploy through both analytics and traceability for the entire project. So as you are designing your to-be solution, it helps that will make up what will be part of your to-be process hierarchy, and your process authoring, where you are configuring and managing the diagram flows. And on top, you can use the requirement management to capture those requirements during your fit to standard workshops. And as you transition to your build, you can take that initial backlog of the requirements that were of the config work, and also the requirements that were called out by the business, those needs of the business, and you can actually break them down at a more granular level, at a task or user story level. So if you're following an agile approach, which most teams do nowadays, it gives you that functionality. So will make it easier for you on the back end if you're doing some sort of PI planning or sprint planning as part of your build. For testing, to ensure quality, you can manage all of the tests in Cloud ALM as well. It supports both your manual and automated testing, where you can create test plans, you can assign test cases, and you can actually execute those test cases and actually capture defects as well. And from a deployment perspective, helps you manage your transports, as we already have called out, and then any changes with the quality gates and the approvals as well, those changes. As I mentioned, it does offer project management capabilities as well that align with your discover and prepare phase as well. So you can use Cloud ALM from the very beginning, from day one of the project, where teams can collaborate, they can plan and track their progress all the way through from the implementation activities in the all-in-one in a centralized environment. You can create project tasks, you can define milestones, you can use tags, or you can break it down into iterations or sprints, and you can also see from the very beginning where you are, so you can act, so you can review, monitor, act, and react to any specific timelines or tasks where you might be behind. And then, of course, the views is customizable depending on your role as well. If you're a project lead or an architect, you may look at you may have different things that you want to look at from a overall project perspective, or at a more detail focused view that you may need. So as you are beginning your design phase, it also helps you jumpstart your fit to standard workshops by utilizing best practices that SAP Contact and the accelerators provide. So you're not beginning the project from scratch. You are using all of the experience, all of the information that SAP has that's provided to you as well. And then you can use custom or standard requirements that are captured during the workshops, are then assigned to the business processes that will make up your project scope. And then, of course, as I mentioned, for traceability, you can further break down those requirements into user stories or even tasks. And then, of course, you can assign transports and features to those objects as well. So you have the full traceability from the very beginning, from your design phase, all the way to the deployment. And I'll show you what that will look like in the demo as well. And then as you continue your design solution, of course, one of the big things is the diagram flows. Cloud ALM does offer standard diagram flows that are standard from Cloud ALM. Another caveat here is that there's actual integration between Cloud ALM and Signavio. So if there's a diagram flows that you want to bring over from Signavio, their integration is available as well. But from a Cloud ALM perspective, the process authoring tool does provide standard out of the box diagrams, and then of course, as you are going through the workshops, you can tailor and customize those diagram flows, and they can be imported and exported via BPMN or even as PDF. So as you are going through and then you can take them from there, and then you can include them as part of your BPDs or as you are going through the workshops. And as you are starting to transition from the design and starting your build, Cloud ALM, the same accelerators, Cloud ALM offers activate roadmaps tasks that help you run your agile project implementation from an end-to-end perspective. So you can manage your project activities directly in Cloud ALM. So as you are going through the workshop, you're capturing those requirements. You can manage those in Cloud ALM. You're breaking down those tasks. And then for those, and then you can actually assign features, which will be the transports to those requirements. So you have traceability of the functionality and the changes that you are making in the system. And another benefit for build is that Cloud ALM allows you, as I mentioned, to break down those requirements. So to where you can actually assign individual owners, and you can track them. You can check them via a Scrum board, or there's other views as well. So there's Scrum board view, there's a Gantt chart view that we can actually offers where we can actually capture dependencies as well. And of course, I'll show you that as well in the demo. Now, from a feature perspective, so think of the feature as a vehicle to deploy your changes. That's what that is in Cloud ALM, as you can see from the truck button, truck icon here. Through your system landscapes, it holds all of the landscape information. So it is the transfer, that is where the objects are being transported, and your technical changes are documented as well. So as you start your implementation, you would making changes to your software or your configuration in the dev environment. So that's where you start initially. Then you need to provide the changes into the test environment for the proper testing to the QA. And then, of course, to indicate a successful test, you would approve for deployment and push those changes into production. So from a feature perspective, Cloud ALM does offer a fixed workflow that with different status values, as you can see here. So it starts off with the in specification state. This is where you do your technical spec, and you still have, and you actually still have an option to postpone at this point. So not plan if you're not ready for to move on to the next stage gate. But if you are ready to move on to the next stage and start your implementation, then you make this, you just update the status in implementation, where you're covering all of those changes and recording all the changes that are completed during your implementation phase. Then you'd hand over to testing. That is where you indicate your feature is ready for testing, and then the changes are in the QA environment here. And then before approving a production, you would indicate that those changes are successfully tested. And then, of course, then we'd push those changes into ready for production, and then we'd confirm for the deployment, and then move those changes into the production system. And just to call out, important here and call out actually. So you know, if you're in deployment phase or you're successfully tested, you know, you can actually, and you're not, and if you need to make any changes, you can actually go back. So you can update the statuses here. So you are not locked in one status where you're only moving forward. So you can go. You can still move back to the implementation if you need to make any changes or any fixes that you may have found during testing. So then once you've completed the build and you want to ensure quality, and that is where testing comes in, right? And Cloud ALM offers, as I mentioned, testing capabilities for orchestrating all testing types, whether it's where you can prepare manual and automated test cases. So you can use the test prep app, where you can manage and prepare your test cases, and then from there you can take those create those test cases that you've created. You can assign them to a test plan. So if you're doing some type of integration testing, or if you're doing or maybe some type of functional testing, this is where you can actually do that. So create test cases, assign them to a test plan. And then, of course, you can use a test execution app to execute the test cases and track their progress. You can also create and manage defects for deficiencies in Cloud ALM during your testing. So you can actually see what you know, maybe where we didn't get an expected result, and then maybe what changes we need to make. And of course, you can leverage the feature in Cloud ALM, so you can move the transports back and forth for the changes that need to happen. And then we can actually, and then of course you can integrate a test automation tools such as Sysantec as well, that provide the standard test cases that are to be synchronized and executed with SAP Cloud ALM as well. And then this is where we actually would bring every Cloud ALM helps bring everything together with full traceability, as I mentioned, from your requirements all the way to the deploy phase, in a holistic approach by integrating your business processes that you have here, the requirements, your user stories and tasks, features, those changes, those transports that we have with the test or orchestration. With test orchestration and management as well. And because of this integration, when you are planning, you can automatically associate all of your testing types to the process, to the requirement, and to the user stories as well. And then, and this is where you want to ensure that there's for quality, you may start off testing at the lowest level with some type of starting at the lowest level, and then with some type of functional test, and then moving your way up to a more complex and larger effort that might be required. So for my user stories are normally tested at a functional test with that your internal team might perform, and then as you progress through build, your requirements are tested by some type of acceptance test. So this is where you would engage the business as well. And then you bring it all together with integration testing, where you are testing several business processes at once based on the scenario testing. And as I mentioned earlier, from an implementation standpoint, it brings everything together with the standard out-of-the-box reporting that provides an overall project view of that allows you an overall project view, but you can also drill down and see using custom filters and tags to getting the view and of where that you want based on your role, whether you're a program manager at a higher level, or you might be a scrum master, or just a project manager, where you might want to see more at an iteration level. Now, from an integration perspective, I will show you what the transports in Jira will look like, but this will be more at a task level. From a project management perspective, Cloud ALM offers integration with third-party tools. Then these are through open APIs that can help you manage your projects. So if SAP is the initiating system for the bidirectional synchronization of task statuses, then once we create a requirement in SAP, then the status is updated and is automatically synchronized in Jira. And the concept will be the same with Jira as well. If Jira was the initiating system for bidirectional synchronization for the task status, so if a feature is created in Jira, then the status will update into the SAP as a requirement. And then, of course, if you have non-SAP, if you have teams that are non-SAP teams that are doing and managing their work in Jira, then the idea here will be the same. And this is one of the CoreALM. We do offer Jira connector as well between Cloud ALM and SAP. So this is how that would work, where we have a one-to-one relationship from your requirement to your epic, task to your user story, and defects to bugs. So this way you have a holistic view of the project and where the teams, whether they are performing work in SAP or other than SAP, to where we're sending that information back and forth, and vice versa. And then the idea will be the same from a field mapping perspective. So you want to ensure that all the data that's being created is flowing between both systems. So here I have on the left-hand side, I have a requirement. If let's say if I'm making an update and updating the priority to medium status, then on the epic that's tied into Jira, that update is flowing automatically. So the field is being updated. Then the idea is the same thing. If I'm making an update in Jira, then the same update is happening in Cloud ALM. Now, let me go ahead and jump into the demo portion of the webinar. So we have the standard Fiori Launchpad. I am going to implementation, and then we'll drill down into the project management. So this is Cloud ALM on the project and setup app. This is where we actually would come in, would create a project. We would assign teams, roles, so we can use Cloud ALM from the very beginning. It's fairly straightforward. On the side here, you can see there's information, there's time boxes that we can assign. So there's phases. If you're following an Agile approach, we can break down the realized phasing into sprints, and we can add milestones. These are all customizable, so we can remove, update, and make changes. As I mentioned, we can assign teams. The scope, we can assign scope. Think of the scope as a container of everything that we're going to deliver, all the processes, documentation, requirements, everything that will be that is part of the release. And then, of course, we would assign deployment phases here. So this is the first app. Then, as we are transitioning and beginning the design phase. So this is where we normally will start those fit to standard workshops as we're engaging business and as the business as well. So as I mentioned earlier, SAP, we don't have to start from scratch. SAP provides those best practices based on experiences that they've had. So this is where we can actually come in. We can, on the very top here, there are filters, and then this will be the standard view for most of the apps that I'll show you. But here you can actually see that there are some processes that I've already brought in as part of the scope. If we want to bring any additional ones, this is where we can actually come in and just turn on the radio button, dial button, and then we can bring those processes in that will help us jumpstart our project. And then as we're going through the workshops, and as we are going through the workshops and building the to-be solution, this is what the process will look like. And I'm just going to give you a very quick preview because I want to go back and show you what the business process hierarchy will look like. So this is what it looks like once we get those processes. And then let me just go back in the other view, and we have the process hierarchy view. So this is where we can actually come in and start building the process hierarchy. So for example, an example here, we have a 14 project breakdown from the highest level, from level 1 all the way to level 4. So this would be at the process step level. And then this is important. So we have the traceability as far as what we're delivering during build, but also how we will manage our testing moving forward. So full traceability, and this is what Cloud ALM gives us, and this is where the biggest benefits, some of the biggest benefits are. So from that perspective, so we can actually, this is where we can build our hierarchy. And I'm going to go back into the processes. So as you can see here, as you are going through the workshops, these are some of the standard flows that Cloud ALM brings in. And then of course, as you're going through the workshops, you want to make there's customizations that are needed that are called out by business. Then of course we can tailor those process flows. But then the idea is that we want the full traceability. So then this is where actually we can bring, this is where that would come in. So as you can see here, we have the process that we are delivering. There's information, and as I said, right, these are all of the part of the accelerators and the best practices that are being brought in for SAP to help us jumpstart our project. There's the accelerators here. You can see from the instructions all the way to the test scripts that are being brought in. We can assign and add documentation as well. So if we have a BPD, we can assign it, we can attach it, or we can create it from scratch. Test cases, I will show you this a little bit later on. But as you are going through the workshops, you're capturing the requirements. This is where you can actually do that. You can assign requirements, or we can create them from scratch, and I'll show you what that view will look like as well. Then as you are capturing those requirements, then you want to break down into user stories. For instance, here we have an integration. The users, we can use the user stories as part of the integration work that the non-SAP teams need to do. And then, of course, requirements at a very high level. It may take several iterations to complete. But the idea is that we want granularity for following an agile approach. So what we can actually do is we can even break those requirements into tasks. So if we have an FSD that we're delivering, if there's a TSD as well, or in some type of FUT functional testing, unit testing that we're doing, or even the work that is being done by non-SAP teams. So we are creating this task, the requirements, and these tasks for them, and then they're being sent over to Jira. And then there, of course, as they're making those updates, we get those updates back in Cloud ALM. So we have the full traceability. We know where we are from both SAP teams and non-SAP teams. So as you are going through you are starting to wrap up the workshops and you are transitioning over to the build phase. You can, on the requirement app here, this is where you can actually, so here I have one of the requirements that is captured. So as you are going, you might be doing some type of PI planning. This is where you can actually come in. You can approve this. You can approve the requirements. We have statuses. You can assign owners. We can assign sprints as well. And then, as I showed earlier, this is what it looks like as well. So all of the user stories, all the tasks are inside this requirement. So there's, as I mentioned, we're looking for traceability as well. We can assign to a specific release. And of course, as you are transitioning maybe from your PI planning, you might start some sprint planning. Then this is where you can actually leverage the tasks feature here. And as you can see, I have the requirement, the deliverable that I have here. And at the sprint level is where I've broken down the FSD, TSD, all of the work, all of that, everything that I need to, all of the stats that I need to deliver in order to deliver that as part of the requirement. There are standard filters here at the top, but there's also Cloud ALM does offer customization as well. So let's say, for example, I don't need this field, and I actually want to look at the start date for a better view. Then I can actually go ahead and just make that update here, so I can customize the filters to give me a better view. And as you can see, this is a much cleaner view. So you can see there's where we are from an FSD perspective. Let's say we're writing an FSD from a status perspective, time box, start and end date, the team, the individual owner as well. Now there's also, so this is a standard table view. There's also a Gantt chart view that I mentioned earlier, and where we can see where we can actually make call out dependencies. So as you can see here, this highlights that there's a dependency here that I cannot move forward until this task is completed. Also, from a Scrum perspective, if you're doing daily Scrum, there's a Kanban board view as well, where you can drag and drop statuses as well. And then I'm just going to go back to the requirement. I'm just going to click on the requirement, and then the idea is that there's a full traceability between SAP teams and non-SAP teams. So as I've created a requirement as well, then I have the reference here. This is the Jira link, so you can actually see. So this is what that actually will look like in Jira. So here we have the epic that's being called out, that's being delivered. So we have it from Cloud ALM, transfer over to Jira, and then there's also all of the work as you're breaking down the requirement into tasks. So there's actually even the work items here that you can see as well. And then the idea is the same for the tasks that we have created. So let's say, for example, I have actually maybe not the FSD. I'll use one of the tasks that I'll use one of the tasks, the mapping, or one of the tasks that the integration team might be doing. So as I mentioned, there's integration work that's required. Then maybe I just flooded the system a little bit. But the idea is that so we have the requirement that's being transferred over as an epic, and then under that epic we'll have all of those tasks as well. That are all of the tasks as well that are flowing. So the non-SAP teams can look at what's assigned to them, and then they can, and then of course they can update the status for the task, and then the status is flowing back into the epic and also into the requirement in Cloud Cloud ALM, and then so we have the full traceability and all the reporting is coming back. Now I am not sure why. Okay, we'll just give the system a second to reboot itself. All right, I just wanted to look at the task very quickly, and then show you guys what. So see, as you can see here, so if there's a mapping that we need to do for the two integration points, then this is what that would look like. So you'd have the task here. The teams would come in, and the teams, non-SAP teams would come in here, and they would update the status, and then you flow back into Cloud ALM. So we have that visibility. So bidirectional communication between both. Then, as we are continuing with build, then short button here is the features. So this is where we can actually come ahead and assign features, right, which are those transports for the changes, all the functionality that we're delivering. So we can you can come in. It's actually it's fairly straightforward if you want to create a transport. This is where we can actually do that. I already have created 2 ahead of time, but as you can see, we've tied the feature to the interface as well. So then this is where we can actually go ahead and do that. There's transports. We can assign priority statuses as well, and we can assign it to a specific release. So we can create these ahead of time, and then we can come back and if they're not part of this release, then we can just leave them in the system here, and then we can go back and assign. But to update status, fairly straightforward. So we're already in development. There's the theme is made. Then in order to check those statuses, then all we have to do is hand over to testing, and then as you can see, the status here is updated to in testing. So so we can actually check the transports and the changes that we've made. If we wanted to go back to make more changes to implementation, this is where we can actually go ahead and do that. Or if we got the desired result, then this is where we actually come in and confirm those changes and the updates. Now, before I get into testing and in Cloud ALM and the functionality that it allows you, I am going to show you the integration that we had for the between Jira and the TMS for the transport changes. So as you can see here, this is and it is customizable. You can tie the transports to an epic or tasks as well. So it is dependent on the configuration, on the functionality you want. What we have done here is tie them to a task. There's and then there's they can update the status. There's a status for the task here. But as you can see here on the SAP transport, I have created. This is where I've created the transports. So there's transport here that has already been created. There's the information down here below, and and this is where we can actually manage the transport. So we can whatever will be the next phase that makes sense. So whether we want to release those transports, we want to import. This is where we can actually go ahead and do that. And I will actually show you how that looks like. So we have a project and then we have a task. So we want to go ahead and assign, you know what, I'll just use the same one. I'll just call it version 3. So we want to assign changes to those tasks. We can tie to a parent if we need to, but I'm not going to do that. But just so you get the ideas there. And then the important part here is at the toggle for the transportable SAP transport change. I want to click yes, and then just hit create. I should get a pop-up here for the created. So now that I've created, the task, then actually I can come in and create the transfer as well. So the way that I do that is if I put in progress, I leave my status in progress, and then the idea is that I can come in and I'll just need to refresh a little bit, and then the idea is that now I have these options here. So obviously the first step would be to create transports. So this is where I can actually go ahead and do that. I can give it a short name. I'll just use what's already populated and then assign a system, whether it's a workbench or a custom. I'll go with custom. We can assign owners. You can just Hourglass, assign myself as the owner. And then the idea is the same. The Hourglass can add it as a user and then create. And then it should be creating the transport from Jira directly to SAP. So the idea here is that you can use Cloud ALM to create features and manage this transport. However, if you are if you are using Jira and your team wants to remain in Jira, but you also want to create changes to, you want to create transports and manage those, send those changes to SAP, this is how you can actually go ahead and do that. And then of course, once I select, then as I already showed, then this is the we can manage all of the rest of the remainder of those transports via statuses. So that is what that looks like from Jira and transports perspective. And then I'll just jumping back into Cloud ALM, and I'm just going to move a lot of information to cover. So I'm just going to move fairly quickly now. This is once we are wrapping up build, we're pushing our changes to the QA. We want to test those changes before we go live. We want to find out the defects, all of that. This is where we can actually go ahead and do that. Test preparation, and this is where we can actually create manual and automated test cases. And then the next one over here is a test plan. So we'll allow those test cases we created, we assign them to a test plan. So this is what that looks like. We can check them statuses and any changes or in. So this is where we have the visibility. And then of course we want to test it in itself. So we want to execute our test cases. I'm just going to filter for the manual test case. This is where we can actually go ahead and do that. So here I have one of the test cases already that that we've created, and then the idea is that as you are going through, and with Cloud ALM, that gives you visibility, right? As you are going through the initial workshops, so as you're designing those to-be processes, this is what actually gets brought in. So you don't actually need to start. You can use those out of the standard test cases that were captured as part of your build, and then as you are testing, you can we're assigning statuses. So if we get the expected result, it's a pass. Obviously, if we get the not expected result, then this is where we mark it as failed, and then we can actually go ahead and create defects for we can create defects. And then if you're doing some type of defect triage call, this is where you can actually go ahead and manage those defects. So you can have all of the defects, we can assign priorities, owners, and dates, teams, and etc. And then of course you can assign, then of course you can use the transports, whether in SAP or these defects. Actually, there's a bidirectional as well tied with Jira. So these defects will flow over in Jira as well. So if you want to manage them in Jira, and then of course you can assign transports in Jira. And the reason why we do all this and we kind of bring it all together is from the process hierarchy is where everything comes in together. Let me just go ahead and just filter by our scope that we had here. So help you get a closer look. And then once it's done, so the idea is that we have everything, full traceability from everything that we created from the design phase all the way to the deployment. So for example, we use this business process from the very beginning. This is the solution process that we're delivering, the requirements that we tracked, all the tasks that were assigned to deliver this requirement, any documentation that's important, test preparation. So we have the test cases, the execution, what testing looked like, any of the defects that we might have captured, and even the libraries that we had here as well. So full traceability, this is where we bring everything together. So Steve, that was everything that I plan to cover as part of the this webinar. I think we can open the floor to for any questions that we may have.
Sounds good. And we just have a few minutes left, but we do have some questions that did come in. Thanks for covering this. It's obviously a very broad topic, lots of different capabilities that you've seen here. And yeah, we definitely spent time kind of walking through Cloud ALM for you A lot of our customers, though, are asking, can I do everything that I need from Jira and just manage transports in Cloud ALM and not have to use Cloud ALM for all of the other activities that you mentioned? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea behind this, right? So it's we understand certain teams feel comfortable with certain tools. Maybe they don't want to use something new. But yeah, that's the idea. You can manage all of your projects in Jira, and then obviously the one need that was always there was, well, what about my transports? And that is where you had the teams in using one certain system for project management, another system for transport management, but this is where that bridge links in. So yes.
Perfect. Yeah, and I guess with this feature integration as well as what you showed for the direct transport management, that makes things a lot easier. I guess you also talked about the testing, and that'd be another area where you may need a testing tool, and so having those linkages to Cloud ALM may be good. So I think what you're saying is you can kind of pick and choose the parts that you want to do in Jira versus in Cloud ALM, and so you were kind of showing both tools, but
yeah.
Like you said, many of our teams or customers are actually just kind of focused on Jira as the main tool. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's the idea behind it. So that's what we've seen in the past. Every time I'll say maybe half of the project will come in, they're saying, "Oh, Cloud ALM looks good, but we are Jira users, so nothing wrong with that."
Exactly. Yep.
Just another tool.
Right. Okay, sounds good. The other question is around Cloud ALM. I can answer this one, I think. The question is, how do I get access to Cloud ALM and what is the cost? If you're an enterprise customer of SAP, then Cloud ALM is included. It's included in all of your RISE licenses. So probably you have access to it for free, at least for one tenant. And then, in terms of getting it set up, usually you just have to create that account initially. For us to be able to integrate with Jira, we would be able to give you that kind of plugin support. There's a few steps involved, but it's kind of like the cloud-to-cloud communication. So it's pretty straightforward from that perspective. And it really only takes a few days to get going, and then of course we can work with you to design your process and just make it a little bit tighter. So that is basically brings us to a close. Harold, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today and walk through this detailed topic. And for our audience here, thanks for staying on and participating in this content. As I mentioned before, if you have interest in this subject or in other subjects, please feel free to go to our article, which is posted on LinkedIn, the SAP ALM Navigator, or our website in the bottom left corner for upcoming webinars. If you can't make a particular webinar, just register anyways, and we'll make sure to send you the recording. If you are watching on the recording, thanks for staying until the end. And then if you want to get in touch with us, go to our website, click the Talk to an Expert button in the top right corner of your screen, and we'll be happy to reach out and get in touch. Again, Harold, thanks. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next week.